Welcome to the Fitgenes Podcast with Dr. Sam Shay, DC, functional medicine certified professional, and Fitgenes certified practitioner. Your genes are your most powerful blueprint. It holds the story of how your body truly works. This show is here for one reason: to decode your DNA, making genetics practical, guiding you towards your best nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle choices. Whether you're a health seeker, a lifelong learner, a practitioner, or a health coach ready to go deeper, this is your place to make sense of genetics. Together, we'll cut through the noise, turn data into insight, and help you communicate with confidence so you can create real change in yourself and in those you support. Each episode breaks down complex genetics into clear, usable frameworks you can actually apply. So stop guessing, start decoding, and let's dive into today's episode.
Welcome to the very first episode of the show. Dr. Sam, I'm so thrilled to be here. I think we should start with a question I hear all the time. Why are you so passionate about this field, and why is genetics the missing link for so many people?
Absolutely. So genetics, I find when I look across all my years in practice and also in talking with and teaching other practitioners, that genetics is the biggest, most meaningful gap in the entire kind of arsenal of testing that's making things that's available for people. Additionally, people are paradoxically, the lay public is paradoxically drowning in genetics information, or they don't have it at all. And so the biggest gap is having a clear torchlight, bearing through all the confusion of what is the most important, set of genes, what is the best way forward to navigate this unending and kind of onslaught of genetic information. So what happens is you've got practitioners and health coaches either ignoring genetics data, or they're overwhelming and overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
And it's a real tragedy, because the one thing that we can say about someone's unique genetic blueprint is that it's unique. And it's the single most high value test that anyone can get without even a close second, simply because once you get the data is good for life, and all the lifestyle recommendations therein are good for life. And it's not like other functional tests, which have great value, whether it's running a thyroid panel, a mitochondria panel, a stool test, whatever, metals, minerals, whatever it might be. But those have to be retested, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, longer, whatever it might be. Genetics, you don't have to do that. So the entire promise of genetics testing is it's deeply, deeply personalized, and the information is permanent. Therefore, it is the most high value test anyone could possibly do, because you just do it once, and you just amortize whatever you invest in your genetics test. Just amortize that over however many decades you plan on living, and the cost over a year of that one test is just reduced down to very, very, very little.
Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. I think everyone listening can have at least a baseline understanding now of why this is so important, why you're so passionate about it. And, I do think that there are a lot of people who can relate to the frustration about there being an overwhelming sense of information. And sometimes, a lot of providers and practitioners I even talk to, they kind of, when they hear genetics, like it's overwhelming. A lot of people think of, the BRCA1 and 2 genes. They think of cancer. They think of chronic disease. They get very overwhelmed. And so can you tell us and share with us how this isn't just a professional, way for people to really understand clinically what's going on, but personal, how genetics can change lives and how it's changed your life specifically?
Sure. So before I got into functional genetics, I like you just described, I thought learning about genetics meant getting a piece of paper that was just prognosticating my untimely death. And it was very scary at the thought of, well, I've got real issues on both sides of my family. Already within both sides, within 2 generations on both sides of my family, there's cancer, there's heart disease, there's stroke, and there's dementia. And it's like, I'm not interested in Originally, I was like,
Right.
what is a genetics test going to do for me that I don't already know, that I'm already just looking down the barrel of just doom and gloom from the most common causes that people get kicked off in the West anyway. And that's when I learned the difference between that there's a difference between different types of genetics tests. So that there's 4 types of genetics tests. There's one type, which is genealogy, like what percentage Irish are you?
Yeah.
Then there's another genetics test, which is who's your daddy? That's paternity testing. Then and that's not what Fitgenes is doing.
Right.
I'm neither of those. And then the third type of genetics testing is testing for genetic diseases and diagnostics, whether it's like fetal genetic testing or other adult kind of disease-based genetics testing. And that's looking for whether it's in things like trisomy 21 or Huntington's disease or other genes. That's looking for a specific gene that is a diagnostic for a specific disease process. That is not what Fitgenes is doing. The fourth category is called functional genetics. And this is looking at the specific sets of genes that you can do something about. That is not a message of disempowerment, but one of empowerment, that you can actually action and change lifestyle, diet, nutrition in order to change the expression of the genes. The genes themselves do not change, but the expression can change. And when I realized that genetics could be actually a message of not only hope, but personal agency, as opposed to nihilistic fatalism. Oh, I've got the bad gene, therefore I might as well give up, pass the Twinkies. That's kind of this fatalistic attitude that a lot of people can get if they run a genetics test and they're thinking that it's a pathology test and that they're just being told you're going to die from X, Y, and Z. Here's your antidepressant, pay your stuff on the way out.
Yeah.
It's not that's a very different mindset. That's a different type of genetics. When we're looking at functional genetics, instead we're looking at the drivers of diseases, not the diseases themselves. So, and we're also looking at dietary genes and exercise genes, so we can create an optimized blueprint, an optimized roadmap to help people know what is their best lifestyle that they can just plug right into, because it's not a fad diet. It's their their own personalized diet, because it's their own genetics.
Right.
So,
and can you share with us some of your, maybe
totally,
main takeaways, right?
Yeah.
Like
my own personal. So at the time, I took I took my first genetics test in 2016. And then
functional genetics.
Thank you. The functional genetics test in 2016. And then in early, I think 2017, then the food triggers panels came out as well. Okay. So at the time in 2016, I was already in practice. As I was kind of a Swiss Army clinician. I was a chiropractor, as an acupuncturist, as a functional neurologist. I was already doing functional medicine in terms of ordering the other panels: thyroid, stool, hormones, minerals, metals, buds, etc. And I've done mind-body medicine stuff for over 16 years at that point, and a bunch of other odds and ends. And for me personally, I was having really crippling joint pain across my fingers.
And you were not at the age in which this should.
No, I was 35 at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Going on 36, and I felt like an 80-year-old man. Additionally, I was having really, it was kind of a daily roller coaster of changes in digestion, shifts in digestion, mood, and energy, just kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was also having like waves up and down of anxiety and some depressive crashes, and several other things. And I didn't understand what was going on, because I was a functional medicine doctor. I didn't I was doing all the tests on myself. I had been taking my 1 gram of fish oil as per pick your blog post of the day.
Recommendation.
My coffee was super bulletproof,
Yeah.
and I just didn't understand why I felt so bad, yet I knew so much,
Mm-hmm.
and why it just, I just it was like I was just very deeply confused and frustrated. And then
Mm-hmm.
a colleague of mine said, "Hey, you got to go do this genetics course," and I'm like, "I really don't want to.
Yeah.
It's a flight, it's a thing. I just like and he basically said, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Take this thing." I was like, "Okay." So I I flew up, and I mean I took you well, actually the way they do is that you took the genetics test first, then you got your results, then you went up to the course
Mm.
because now you had your own tests in front of you, so it was a lot more kind of immediate
Mm.
and relevant.
And so this course was put on by the lab.
By Fitgenes, yeah.
Yeah.
This was done in New Zealand
Okay.
because the founding lab was in Australia. So when I got my genetics test back, I remember very clearly was visiting the South Island. I was in another conference at the time when I got my results back, and I opened my results, and I literally cried for an hour when I
Oh.
saw my results, and I cried for two reasons,
Mm-hmm.
three reasons. One was I finally had answers.
Mm.
I finally understood why I was so chronically ill growing up compared to other people that
Mm-hmm.
seemed to be in the same environment, same food, same whatever, but I was the sickly one.
Mm.
And it boiled down to I was hyper inflammatory.
Mm.
And also I had very poor time absorbing vitamin D, not synthesizing it. I mean, there's a difference between synthesizing vitamin D and absorbing it.
Right.
My issue is absorbing it,
Okay.
which means that you can't really use vitamin D that efficiently. And
Yeah.
vitamin D just, we'll have an entire episode on vitamin D. Spoiler alert, like getting vitamin D into the blood, you can get from sunlight, sustenance, or supplements.
Yeah.
But getting it from blood into the cells is a whole other set of
Yeah.
genes. And that's the important bit. And vitamin D is not just about bone density. Yeah, it does that. It's on its resume.
Right.
Great. But the actual main functions of vitamin D are to reduce inflammation and control the immune system.
Mm.
And if you can't do those efficiently, then you're in real trouble.
Yeah.
And I also have of the now 16 main pro-inflammatory genes. I have 14 out of 16 of those genes as pro-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
And and everyone listening likely knows that you can draw pretty much a straight line from chronic inflammation to chronic illness.
Yeah.
So the way that so when I realized, oh, my body, no wonder I've been struggling so much with my health since I was a child. And then the other thing that I realized, reason I cried, aside from getting answers of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, now I understand, is I actually had solutions in front of me.
You had
Solutions.
Mm.
And so because I was a hyperinflamer, one of the many reasons I picked Fitgenes as the primary lab and approach to go forward with in genetics, and
Mm-hmm.
I've had other genetics companies try to poach me, and
Mm-hmm.
I've said no,
Mm-hmm.
is that they're the ones that figured out the prioritization
Mm.
of genes, and that they weren't chasing after diseases.
Mm.
They were looking at the drivers. So, for example, Dr. Beaver, the co-founder, and the chief science officer, he got into this simply because both of his parents were diagnosed with cancer, and he was concerned about his health, his kids' health, and his grandkids' health.
Right.
So he switched his PhD engineering genius over to genetics, which is to his credit, because what does an engineer do? It takes reliable processes and put them in a reliable order in a logical way so they create predictable outcomes every time. That's an engineer.
Yeah.
So he read over 5,000 genetics articles and then figured out not what disease genes to chase, but what were the 7 drivers of all the chronic diseases.
Which is so much more impactful.
Absolutely, because now I'm not worried about what cancer gene I've got. I'm
Right.
worried about, am I provoking the 16 inflammatory genes that will then poke on the disease
Right.
genes downstream, whatever
Right.
they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, he was also able to piece together, based on human research studies done on humans, not wombats or nematodes, what are the lifestyle changes alone, diet, nutrition, etc., lifestyle, that will shift the expression of those most important genes that drive these processes. Which are the most important lifestyle changes you can make that will affect the most number of the most important of these genes? So instead of me having to do 14 separate lifestyle interventions or diet interventions for those 14 out of 16 inflammatory genes, I only do like 3, 5, because it'll hit on all of them.
So much more manageable.
Absolutely. And it's more, and it's not only more manageable, it's more effective.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the interventions also influence the same gene. Like 3 out of those 5 interventions probably will hit on 80% of all the same genes. So you're approaching the gene from multiple spots.
Right.
So just as an example, within just a couple months of shifting my lifestyle nutrition based on my genetics reports, all the joint pain in my fingers went away and have stayed gone.
Wow.
And that was 10 years ago. So, and that was from just like the inflammatory profile that
So it's not like you weren't doing healthy things before, quote unquote, but they just weren't maybe healthy for you and your body, your genetics, which I feel like a lot of people fall into.
Yeah, I'd say that in my particular case, it was not quite that was unhealthy. It's just it hadn't crossed that threshold to make the effects. So there was, meaning that I was taking my 1 gram of fish oil. But what the research shows is in Nutrigenomic dosing. Nutrigenomics is not nutritional dosing. Nutritional dosing is throwing widgets into the existing machinery. Here's your gram of fish oil that's going to help the existing whatever anti-inflammatory stuff is happening. Nutrigenomic dosing is, the research shows that if you do over 2 grams of combined EPA, DHA, you don't just throw widgets into the machinery, you change the machinery. You actually change the genetic expression of about 10 of those 16 inflammatory genes to make it more anti-inflammatory as such. It's not just merely, here's more fish oil to help out. It's, you're changing the entire infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's what the difference was.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that the 1 gram fish oil was unhealthy. It just was insufficient for my genetics. And
that's so powerful.
Yeah. I had no idea about the term nutrigenomics until I took that seminar. I was staring my own genes on the page. And the third reason why, so I had an explanation. I had a set of solutions. And the third reason I was crying was that I forgave my body.
Oh.
And I'm not being poetic. I'm being very serious about this, because I remember growing up, starting at age 6, I was deeply sick.
Yeah.
Severe insomnia, lots of anxiety and depression, chronic pain.
Oh, that's so heavy.
Embarrassing, humiliating digestive problems. It was a violent school system. It was an emotionally fraught home situation. No adults protecting me or believing me. And I was just so unwell. And, the classic 80s diet of just garbage, SpaghettiOs and ramen noodles and Prince spaghetti and low, hydrogenated death known as, I can't believe it's not butter. And, high gluten, high
sugar,
carb, just sugar, box cereals it's amazing them even alive.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that my hyperinflammatory response was not a sign that my genes were wrong. It was just my genes are mismatched for today's society.
Trying to protect you.
Protect me in a very specific environment. So I always look at evolutionary biology. And as a hunter-gatherer, my genes are perfect for a tip of the spear frontline hunter. Because if I'm hyperinflammatory, like what is the point of inflammation? The point of inflammation is to rush in red blood cells and white blood cells to repair damage and kill off any infections that may have been introduced. So if I'm out there hunting 20,000 years ago with a group of hunters and we're trying to take down an animal 20 times our body weight and all we have is a tiny stick,
Yeah.
we're going to get bit, mauled, gored, trampled, or otherwise.
Yeah.
So if I get a bite wound and I'm hyperinflammatory, that bite wound will heal faster, and the infections that were introduced from that bite will be killed faster than a less inflammatory prone party member. Same bite wound.
Yeah.
So it's all about trade-offs. So if I'm hyperinflammatory, I will survive more in the short term as a hunter at the trade-off of having worse health outcomes long term. Whereas my less inflammatory prone hunting party member will have higher risk of dying in the short term from wounds, but in the long term, the trade-off will have a healthier life, beyond the short-term acute hunting injuries. So it's all about trade-offs. And so I realized that, my genes are not bad. They're just mismatched.
And your body isn't bad.
Yeah.
And your body's capable of healing, just was not given the right tools.
Yeah.
Like you said, mismatched.
I mean, I remember waking up 10 years old because of my severe insomnia. I remember waking up at like 3 a.m. each morning. Waking up, I would start yelling at my own body. What do you want? Why won't you let me sleep? I'm having this very antagonistic other relationship with my body. It felt like an abusive, codependent relationship where I'm being punished for rules I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do to appease this invisible oppressor that has control over my mental and physical well-being. And I just didn't know that everything that my entire life when I was growing up was exactly wrong, driving me in the wrong direction. I mean, even down to genetic reports are powerful, but only if you can actually interpret them and your clients can really understand what to do and in what priority. If you're a health coach, clinician, or practitioner who feels buried in genetics pathways, complex list of SNPs, and jargon that never seems to end, you're not alone. At FitGenesUSA.com, we make genetics understandable and actionable. FitGenesUSA.com distills the complexity of genetics into practical frameworks that you can use the same day. Faster interpretation, clearer communication, and better outcomes without spending hours lost in the weeds. Whether you're supporting weight loss, optimizing diet, hormone balance, digestion, inflammation, or getting to the underlying cause of chronic issues, genetic clarity can change everything. FitGenesUSA.com also provides a unique genetic carb tolerance report to help determine whether your clients are better suited to a keto or paleo or Mediterranean or higher carb style diet. Make your practice stand out with this unique report. Save time and energy with clear, easy to read reports and upgrade your practice with precision genetics testing. Start now at FitGenesUSA.com. Decode complexity, deliver results. Diet where, one of the other things I figured out when I got my genetics results back was that I am genetically deeply sensitive to caffeine. And we've got a whole episode of caffeine that will be coming out. Caffeine sensitivity. So you can get what's called caffeine-induced anxiety and depression. And
And were you drinking coffee as a 10-year-old?
I was drinking it from a 6-year-old.
Okay, yeah.
Because my insomnia was so severe, I needed coffee to stay awake in kindergarten. And I was just so exhausted. And what I didn't know is that I had genetic, I had a caffeine-induced anxiety and depression from my genetics. So a portion of the anxiety and depression I experienced was from caffeine. But I had no idea until I actually got my genetics 30 years later.
How could you? No, you're also 10, right? Like you're trying to...
Well, 6 also, yeah.
Or 6, right? So I think it's such a powerful shift to go from, if I can say, maybe potentially hating or really disliking your body.
No, hate's the right word.
Yeah, hating your body for failing you to realizing it was just in the wrong environment. And so for, practitioners listening, how does this change the game for them? And, why shouldn't they just keep relying on that standard blood work?
Well, blood work is very useful. I just would say it's incomplete. And now, to be fair, there's, dozens of really significant types of tests out there. And I would say there's 5 major categories of testing: gut testing, hormone testing, mitochondrial and metabolic testing, the weird stuff, meaning metals, molds, toxins, hidden infections. And then the 5th category is genetics. So to me, that 5th category, genetics, is one of the ones that's either completely absent or overwhelmingly confusing. So my blood work is very useful in the sense that it's a window, it's a snapshot of what's going on in the body now. So genetics does not tell you what is happening now. It is telling you what are your tendencies and probabilities, and what is the direction you should be heading towards an ideal diet versus, and also where are the fault lines, where are the weak points in the genetic chain that needs to be attended to.
Yeah.
And one of the best examples is that we're talking about, we mentioned vitamin D, the genes of vitamin D. There's the genes of vitamin D synthesis. There's about a half dozen of those that help convert sunlight into vitamin D3 that float around in the blood. And there's 2 major genes that help transport the vitamin D from the blood into the cells. What the genetics test doesn't tell you is what your vitamin D levels are now.
Yeah.
That doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So that's where blood testing is really, really useful. And
to better understand if, let's say, these genes had any vulnerabilities, or they were, compromised in some manner, you get your blood levels of vitamin D, maybe they're really low or something of the sort. You can have a better understanding, like you in your case, right? Like, oh, this is not enough. You said about fish oil, right? Like 1 gram not being enough for your particular genes. That's, I feel like, even as for me as a practitioner, that's incredibly useful to really be able to provide personalized medicine for clients.
Yeah, I'd say, we'll have a whole episode on vitamin D synthesis and the receptors. But just as an example, if someone has, red or yellow dots on their vitamin D receptors, I've got double reds, then I really, really need to keep my vitamin D levels high, because I need to have as much available vitamin D as is realistic, so that my vitamin D receptors can actually grab the few ones that I have. So the way to think about it, we'll get a tiny bit technical, we'll get more detailed in another episode, but vitamin D, think of the cell as a little, think of the cell, an individual cell, as sitting at a giant glorified sushi tray known as the bloodstream.
I love this
example. The bloodstream is a giant rotating sushi tray.
Yeah.
And the cells have vitamin D shaped chopsticks that reach out and pluck vitamin D from the rotating sushi tray known as your bloodstream. However, some people don't have a lot of those vitamin D shaped chopsticks. That's what the vitamin D receptors are if they're a red or yellow dot, meaning they have a genetic variation where they just simply don't make enough of these vitamin D shaped chopsticks. So what you do want is, one, to have sufficient vitamin D so that whenever a chopstick goes out, it is going to grab something, because there's vitamin D there to be grabbed. The other is other lifestyle and dietary changes to help nudge the vitamin D receptor genes to make more vitamin D shaped chopsticks.
Yeah.
So that's from a practical level, like from a functional medicine standpoint, the ideal levels in the West for vitamin D in the blood is between 60 and 80. It's like nanograms per deciliter.
I think that's right.
I think it's deciliter. It's, I keep forgetting the denominator, but I know it's nanograms per something.
Yeah.
But 60 to 80. So if someone had a red or yellow dot, I would be just as in kind of big broad strokes, I would want, if someone's a red dot, I want them to be closer to 80.
Yeah.
And the yellow as well, maybe like hovering around a little bit above 70. Whereas the green dots, I'd be less worried if it was around 60 nanograms. So this is a way, not necessarily the way, that I at least think about it. Like
Yeah.
how does it become practical when you're cross-referencing blood work with genetics?
Yeah. I love that. That was a great example. I'm always going to remember, and a little tidbit into the vitamin D episode, which we'll
Teaser,
have
right?
later on. So let's bring this home for the listener. You aren't, about data dumps per se. You really focus on the generals. Can you break that down for us?
So the more data is not better data. Better organized and prioritized data is better data.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, that there's this kind of U-shaped curve paradox in the genetics world where people avoid looking at genetics or they get completely dumped with way too much information.
Like getting whole genome sequencing.
Well, it's not even just whole genome sequencing. I mean, that can be overwhelming by yards and yards, but even just the more mundane other genetics tests that do like hundreds of genes, or they do fewer than hundreds of genes, and they they drown you in all the they drown you in all the RSID numbers and these kind of obscure hexadecimal designations of these genes. That it's like you need a hieroglyphics decoder ring to figure out what these things are saying.
Yeah.
And it's just not easy to understand as a member of the lay public. So that's why I designed the Fitgenes genetic blueprint and the carb choice advanced profiles to make it really, really easy for both practitioner and especially the public to actually understand what's going on without being overwhelmed and confused. And the focus from Fitgenes USA is how to make genes practical, winnable, really actionable, non-overwhelming, empowering, giving personal agency. The data should not be dumped. It should be directive and prioritized.
Yeah.
And the most important things that people can do to improve their life based on their genes is, what are the genes around their diet? What are the genes around specific nutrients they may genetically need more of, like I did, for example, with fish oil, and will be other episodes covering some of the other genetic vulnerabilities that I needed nutritional support in.
Right.
And then what are the genetic realities around their exercise and their recovery?
Yeah.
And the recovery piece, like if you've been struggling with stubborn weight, low energy, inflammation, tried every diet, or just feeling off no matter what you try, there's a reason. Your body isn't broken. You've just never seen the map. The Fitgenes genetic blueprint and the carb choice advanced profiles give you clear, personalized roadmaps for your health based entirely on your unique genetics. This isn't another diet. It's not guesswork. It's not a one-size-fits-all plan. With one simple cheek swab, you finally learn how your body is genetically predisposed to burn fat, handle carbs, detox, manage inflammation, balance hormones, recover from stress, and optimize energy. Instead of forcing your body into plans that don't work, you get a nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, and supplement strategy built precisely for your body, so you can feel more energy, drop inflammation, optimize your body shape, and feel amazing. To find the nearest Fitgenes practitioner near you, go to fitgenesusa.com. That's fitgenesusa.com. Very passionate about people learning the genetics of their recovery.
Yeah.
Because that is the single biggest gap I see in the entire exercise and health optimization world.
Yeah.
Are people not taking their recovery seriously. And some people genetically really need to take their recovery seriously.
Yeah.
I was one of them.
And it will make the difference in whether they perform or have the physique that they want,
and not get injured.
Yeah. It makes all the difference.
And also not swell from water retention from overinflammation. I did an entire lecture at a Fitgenes conference called Exercise-Induced Obesity, which seems like a paradox, but it's a specific gene combination where you've got people who are hyperinflamers and they've got issues around liver detox, particularly estrogen metabolism, and they just do way too much exercise, and then exercise crosses that threshold from being net anti-inflammatory to net pro-inflammatory, and the body will start to retain water to dilute the inflammatory chemicals to prevent them from digging in and damaging cells and tissues. And then you can walk into any CrossFit gym and know exactly who's a hyperinflamer.
Yeah.
I can do this today.
Yeah.
And I just look around and I see, okay, who has this layer of water weight across their whole body. And like they're strong, but they're not cut. They're not defined.
Yeah.
And these are the people that I can almost guarantee are hyperinflammers and they're over exercising.
Yeah.
And then you got the added element of some people who are have trouble with estrogen detox, and if they engage in this over exercise and they're hyperinflammatory, but they also have problems detoxing estrogen. Well, if you're hyperinflammatory and your liver's primary job is to deal with inflammation, not if there's too much inflammation in the body, it's going to prioritize that over detox. If you walk into your kitchen and the garbage bag is full and you've got a grease fire, what's the priority?
Right.
The grease fire.
Yep.
So what happens is now you've got all this excess estrogen circulating, and men develop gynecomastia, and women, their cycles go sideways. So,
which I know there's listeners who 100% can either identify with one of these or know somebody with one of these. So, this makes so much sense, and I really appreciate you breaking down the hierarchy and the prioritization, both that Fitgenes and these genetic reports provide people, but also that's just innately in our bodies, right? Like just that hunter-gatherer primal instinct that our bodies have to protect us, keep us alive, and survive. And so, if people are feeling, that aha moment, maybe now listening and want that clarity, what is their first step?
So the first step is to really own that genetics is a massive, unrealized, underutilized tool properly. In this, like, what you want are the focused genes that actually are the highest priority and designed onto in a report that's designed for ease of readability and actionability.
Yeah.
It's not the more data is better data.
Yeah. And we have so much data
There's so
now.
much data.
So much.
So the first step is that if people who are listening is to subscribe to the podcast because we're going to be we're going to be supplying just so many more episodes that are going to cover these genetic issues in depth, and like topic by topic, like caffeine, exercise, inflammation, lactose, gluten,
methylation,
caffeine sensitivity, histamines. All those. I think I've charted out at least 50 topics at this point. And then to go to fitgenesusa.com, and that if you're a certified health coach or a licensed practitioner, that you can become a Fitgenes practitioner and learn how to incorporate this into your client base. And if you're a member of the public, what you can do is go to fitgenesusa.com and click Find a Practitioner, and we can connect you to the nearest practitioner.
Great. This is such an empowering way to start this whole journey. Whether you're doing this for yourself or your clients, right? It's time to move from confusion to total clarity. So, Dr. Sam, any final thoughts for our first-time listeners?
You don't need to have a massive cathartic cry section every time when you get your results back. That was just my experience. Most people don't have that, so it doesn't have to be. I don't actually set up
crying
that.
is really great, but it doesn't have. It may not be that way.
It was just for me. It was just so significant for those three reasons, and I just want to reassure people that, like, getting one's genetics in this way is one of the most empowering and clarifying tests you will ever get in your entire life. And I would have done anything to have had my genetics test at age 6 as opposed to 36.
Yeah.
My entire life would have been different. My diet would have been different. My exercise habits would have been different. My inflammatory issues would have been different. My height would have been different. I would have had I would have not struggled. I would have been a fraction of what I had to deal with if I had known my genetics. And it's like, well, how old can people do when they do genetics? Well, if you've got a cheek, you can do a cheek swab.
Yeah, you literally test one time.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my My encouragement to people is to go to fitgenesusa.com, and if you're a member of the lay public, just find a practitioner. If you're a certified health coach or a licensed practitioner, click become a practitioner, and also subscribe to the podcast, and keep listening and keep learning.
Amazing. Thanks, Dr. Sam. See you in the next one.
See you.
Thanks for listening to the Fitgenes Podcast. If you're a practitioner or certified health coach or clinician, visit Fitgenesusa.com to confidently bring genetics into your practice and improve your clients' outcomes. If you're a health seeker or lifelong learner or biohacker, go to Fitgenesusa.com to find the nearest Fitgenes practitioner near you. If you got value from today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Every 5-star rating helps others find this show and unlock the power of their own genetic blueprint. Until next time, remember, genetics doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs the right blueprint.